Hi, Amy. There you are.
Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Cool.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, bye.
Yeah, it was like 10% or something. Okay, Sarah, we ready to go on your side? Perfect. Sounds good. All right, well, welcome everybody. Thanks for coming. I will call to order the regularly scheduled meeting of Tuesday, January 24th, 2025. Please join me for a flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The Assembly of the City and Borough of Sitka would like to respectfully acknowledge the traditional First People of Sitka. With gratitude, we proceed on Tlingit Ani. Sarah, roll call, please.
Mayor Eisenbeis,
Present?
Mr. Pike,
Here.
Ms. Carlson is absent this evening. Mr. Mosier,
Here.
Mr. Celine,
Here.
Mr. Yestad,
Here.
and Mr. Christensen is also absent.
Thank you. Any correspondence or agenda changes this evening? Seeing none, that'll bring us to special reports tonight. Is anyone here for government to government? Municipal boards, commissions, committees? Municipal departments? School district? And students and guests for special reports? Seeing none, that'll bring us to persons to be heard this evening. This is public participation for any item off of tonight's agenda, not to exceed 3 minutes for any individual. Seeing none, consent agenda, please.
I move to approve the consent agenda consisting of item A, adopting an alternative allocation method for the fiscal year 25 shared fisheries business tax program and certifying that this allocation method fairly represents the distribution of significant effects of fisheries business activity in FMA 18 Central Southeast area. And item B, authorizing an application to the Department of Homeland Security and Emergency Management.
Second. It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. Is there any public comment? Sarah, on the consent agenda, please.
All right, on the motion to approve the consent agenda consisting of item A and B, Mayor Eisenbeis,
Yes?
Mr. Yestad,
Yes.
Mr. Mosier,
Yes.
Mr. Celine,
Yes.
and Mr. Pike.
Yes.
The motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. Item C, please.
I move to appoint Sterling Camden to a 3-year term on the Health Needs and Human Services Commission.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to appoint Sterling Camden to a term on the Health Needs and Human Services. Is there any public comment? Assembly deliberation? Sarah?
Mr. Yestad,
Yes.
Mayor Eisenbeis,
Yes?
Mr. Mosier,
Yes.
Mr. Pike,
Yes.
and Mr. Celine.
Yes.
The motion passes 5-0 on item C.
Unfinished business, item D.
I move to approve ordinance 2024-32 on second and final reading, amending Title II Administration of the Sitka General Code by updating Chapter 2.35 Library Commission.
Second. It's been moved and seconded to approve ordinance 24-32. Is there any public comment? Assembly deliberation? Sarah?
All right, on the motion to approve ordinance 2024-32 on second and final reading, Mr. Celine,
Yes.
Mr. Pike,
Yes.
Mr. Yestad,
Yes.
Mr. Mosier,
Yes.
and Mayor Eisenbeis.
Yes.
The motion passes 5-0.
Item E, please.
I move to approve ordinance 2025-02 on first reading, amending Title 14 Streets, Sidewalks, and Public Places of the Sitka General Code by amending Chapter 14.10 Commercial Recreational Use of Municipal Lands and Facilities.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve ordinance 25-02. While this is under unfinished business, there are some slight modifications from an ordinance that came before us previously. So Kevin and Amy, I understand there's an introduction to what has changed and what is in front of us now. Thank you for your time.
Hi, thanks. Good evening, Assembly. Kevin Knox, Parks and Recreation Coordinator. Yeah, the only real big change in the proposed ordinance is the effective date. We moved that effective date to November 1st of this fall of 2025 in order to accommodate making some changes to the use plan and allowing us some more time to kind of establish a system for ourselves to better, I guess, administer these permits. So I would be happy to go over some of the other proposals within the code if you'd like. But I think we had a pretty good robust discussion in that first go around about what the change would look like and how the new permit system would operate. Amy, if you have more to add to that.
Thank you, Kevin and Mr. Mayor, Assembly members, Amy Ainsley, Planning and Community Development Director. Yeah, don't want to kind of go over too much of what we've gone over in the past, but in broad strokes, this is an effort for us to streamline and modernize the way that we issue commercial recreational land use permits on municipal lands and for municipal facilities by kind of being a little bit more systematic about what areas we do and don't permit and making sure that there's a robust public process around those things. And creating a little bit more kind of objective measures in terms of determining how we issue those permits, particularly in the light of the growth of this industry. So that's in very, very broad strokes, the goal of this ordinance. But yeah, the really only main provision was that change in effective date, which would really make this effective for the 2026 season.
Great. Thank you both for the introduction. Amy, if we have questions, are you staying online for this item?
Yes, I will. Yep.
Great. Thank you both. If we have questions, we'll call you back up. Is there any public comment on, whoa, I lost my item number here. Ordinance 25-02.
Good evening, Bethany Lawrence, High Output Tours, formerly Sika Bike and Hike. Mayor, Assembly members, as the owner of a local business that depends on access to Sika's municipal lands, I understand the importance of balancing tourism, sustainability, and community interests. However, several of the updates to the ordinance present significant challenges for operators like me, and I ask the Assembly to consider adjustments to ensure these changes are fair and practical. The minimum 60-day permit application process creates significant concerns for businesses, particularly as many of us are exploring ways to expand to year-round operations to create stability and diversify income streams, especially given the uncertainty surrounding cruise traffic. Seasonal operators depend on timely permit approvals to prepare for the busy season, and a rigid 2-month delay creates barriers to flexibility and adaptation. For businesses aiming for a January start date, permit applications would need to be available no later than October to ensure issuance by January 1st, 2026, accounting for holidays and other potential delays. Streamlining the process for returning operators with proven track records would reduce risks of disruption while supporting business is transitioning to year-round models. Another significant issue is the non-transferability of permits in the event of a permit holder's death. This provision would force businesses to shut down mid-season, creating significant disruptions for employees, customers, and local economy. Situations like this are rare, but the ability to transfer permits is critical to ensuring continuity during a time of uncertainty. In fact, it's the reason Sika Bike and Hike didn't fold this summer following Michelle's passing. This policy provided stability and time to reorganize, allowing the business to continue to serve the community and supporting its employees. Maintaining this option would give other businesses the same opportunity to navigate challenging circumstances while minimizing harm. Finally, the requirement for employees to carry physical copies of permits and wear visible badges at all times is not only overly burdensome, but also ineffective without real enforcement mechanisms. Our staff wear uniforms and act as professional ambassadors for Sitka, ensuring they're easily identifiable. Adding this requirement increases costs while offering no meaningful benefit. Worse, it risks creating an environment that feels restrictive and hostile. Troubling historical parallels, such as identification practices used in Nazi Germany to separate others, highlight why measures must be approached with caution. Sitka's tourism industry thrives on hospitality, professionalism, and respect, and we should adopt policies that reflect those values rather than undermine them. I hope that you take some time to look at these revisions carefully, and I thank you for your time.
Any other comments on 25-02? Back to the assembly for deliberation.
What's the reason why they can't transfer a permit, you know, like in the middle of the season, like was being explained?
Yeah, Kevin or Amy, if you have an answer for that one. I was actually looking for that too, because I wanted to clarify if the LLC or corporation owns the permit or if they're personally owned. I was flipping through it to find information about that as well. And either or of you, if you have the answer, would be.
Sure, Amy, you got?
Sorry, getting some things pulled up here. As of right now, the permit terms are only for 1 year. In the future, when the permit terms are longer, which is a goal of ours, and I think we talked about that quite a bit at the last couple of discussions, is that we want to get to the goal where we're issuing multi-year permits instead of one. But as of right now, we're only doing 1 year permits, which is consistent with the existing code. And so we were trying to keep kind of make sure that things were as represented on the application, by the applicant there, in terms of the permit passing.
Is it the LLC, the corporation that owns the permit, or is it the individual?
It is the
Business entity?
It says so the way that the code is written, any new business owner, subsidiary, the primary owner, contractor, or other person or entity must apply for and obtain the permits for those activities. So it is the individual. It's not necessarily just the business that owns the permit.
So can we talk about the instance that was brought up in the middle of a season? If the permit owner passes, it's another 60-day permitting process. And is that permitting process only open once a year annually?
It is not only open once a year. There is a primary duration where we would like for everyone to apply and to issue all of those permits at that point. Anyone else who applies after that point would be kind of on a first come, first served basis. In the as was heard in public, rare but possible case that we had an instance like a business owner dying where there is no responsible entity under that permit anymore. I don't think that this provision prevents us from providing some flexibility there if they were going to operate under the same under the exact same terms and provisions of the original permit.
Okay.
It's not
Rachel,
a new
how you would
person.
see this as well?
Yes.
Okay, great. So we have that on the record anyway, if someone wants to refer back to that. Scotty, that helps answer your
Yeah,
question.
well, I'm
I'm
just
assuming. I
seeing,
think I had the
so
same.
somebody gets run over by a Love Boat bus and the next day they got their whole crew here still working. And then there's an impedance, into just rolling on with the assets about whoever gets all the bikes or whatever. But I'm feeling like another barrier that the municipality's building on risk takers, and it just be a simple one to go forward, like under those circumstances, you know, we wouldn't stop. I mean, I could see where all of a sudden somebody died and then the insurance policy that's covering everybody the next day would have problems too. But I'm just thinking if there's all kinds of guides here and stuff and, you know, have a vehicle in place so that all that capital ain't lost on that one effort is what I was feeling.
Yeah, in the original intent of that section, we weren't meaning to put up a barrier for an instance like this. I think the intent was more for actual transfers of a business between, you know, a sale or something else like that. Because you want to be able to track and have accountability within those transfers and the new owner still abiding by and understanding the guidelines of the permit. It's a fairly common practice, and in fact, I believe it's a very similar practice for the Forest Service with their commercial use permits. They probably have that. I believe I remember reading in there that they have that same kind of provision. But it wasn't put in there with any intent of creating any barrier, especially in an instance like this. And I think Amy's right. There's nothing in here that would prevent us from providing some flexibility in an instant like that.
For Amy and Kevin, or general comments?
I guess general comment.
Anything else for Amy and Kevin at this point while we have them up front? Appreciate you both. Thank you. We may call on you again. Chris?
Still kind of on the same topic with this transfer. The CFEC, which is Commercial Fishery Entry Commission, where my permits go through, there is a section for emergency transfers due to weird circumstances. And it sounds like there's still maybe enough flexibility with the language that we have, but potentially some sort of emergency transfer language, if need be, could get thrown in.
If you don't mind, Mr. Mayor, I mean, we can do that, but our legal counsel just pointed out that it's permittable to make an exception. The point is not to, that's on a very sad and heartbreaking and circumstance, but it's not a common one. They had a different intent for having the permits, you know, cease when the person doesn't have the business anymore. So I think I'm comfortable as it is.
Tim?
Yeah, I mean, maybe an emergency appeal, put the administrator in the role, being able to issue an emergency permit, you know, based upon extenuating circumstances. I could see a lot of reasons why that would make sense, as opposed to, you know, it just clarifies that there is flexibility. Now, I mean, we heard from our legal counsel, there is flexibility, but there's still going to be a process of filling it all out, and apparently up to 60 days wait. And, you know, I could just see some other issues that we might want to put in place a little quicker circumstance where someone could look at the circumstances and say, yeah, let's just keep this business running.
Rachel?
I think the way it's written now, you have the option both. If you wanted to direct folks to add something express in, you could do that, or it could be handled, you know, at the policies and procedure level, creating an internal procedure policy for emergency issuance, emergency review.
I'm comfortable either way. Code is where the general public is going to look first. So if it's not clearly labeled there may be some angst. While we don't necessarily have general internal policies and procedures readily available. So I'm kind of either way. I know we have a while now because this isn't going to necessarily become the rule until the land use plan is part of this. And we have until November on this, so we do have time to modify. We're not in a time crunch anymore. So, John?
I think it might be helpful if I can just offer a bit of intent behind that language. I think there is the flexibility, as Rachel said, for emergency circumstances such as that. But since we don't issue business licenses for Sitka, you register for a sales tax account. The intent of this is, you know, there are times where we get bad actors who might have unpaid sales tax or other non-compliance type issues that in the review, that LLC would have to have some sort of agent or some primary owner of that business applying for that permit. And there might be folks who know that they can't get through that review phase, and the intent is to avoid an LLC being set up in somebody's name that is compliant and then transferring it to somebody who is not compliant. That's one of the reasons for the measure. But I think in those emergency circumstances, we have the flexibility there to make that change as necessary.
Again, for me on this one, I appreciate a lot of the general public protections that this is going to provide. I think it's necessary in an ever-growing and modifying Sitka. I'm more comfortable with waiting until next season in order to get this going. I think at this point, we're a little late in the game to make these modifications for people who have already put a lot of time and energy and effort into planning a season, status quo. So I'm much more comfortable starting it on the next season, but I understand a lot of the protections for the public areas that people are asking for, that come with that land use plan. So and previously I spoke to not being comfortable approving this without seeing the land use plan. I kind of understand the track that staff has gone down in order to do this one first, which enables that land use plan, and then providing that as well. I think there'll be lots of call for some modification over the next year as that happens. John, I did get one comment on this with the appeals, and the person was concerned that their business specifically has been issued permits, and a lot of appeals had been filed for them receiving their permit. And appeals were gone through and they were never substantiated. But the person speaking to me said that they're cautious about how many appeals you're going to see, just because, or complaints against the permittee, if we keep on this yearly cycle. And they were mainly concerned about reducing your workload for unsubstantiated appeals of the issuance. Do you have a concern about that going forward with this? It kind of comes down to the yearly process more than anything.
I don't think I really have a good gauge on that. Under the existing system, I've really only seen no more than one appeal per year. And I think with a strong land use plan as that is developed, I will have a stronger document to lean on to make a judgment on that appeal. If anything, it'll take the subjectivity out of the appeal process. But I couldn't give you a clean answer until it takes effect.
Okay, yeah, just mainly trying to reduce staff workload here overall, as this process moves forward. And I understand the intent is after a year or two to go to longer terms, which I am supportive of. Anything further on 25-02? Sarah?
All right, on the motion to approve ordinance 2025-02 on first reading, Mr. Pike,
Yes.
Mayor Eisenbeiß,
Yes.
Mr. Mosher,
Yes.
Mr. Celine,
Yes.
and Mr. Yestad.
Yes.
The motion passes 5-0 on item E.
Item F, please.
I move to approve ordinance 2025-01 on first reading, making supplemental appropriations for fiscal year 2025 special election.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve ordinance 25-01. Sarah, you have an introduction for this one?
I do, thank you. So on December 16th, last month, a citizen initiative application to limit cruise visitation in Sitka was certified. And then 2 weeks later, on December 30th, our office issued petition booklets to those sponsors for signature collection. The sponsors have expressed the desire for a special election to be held, and they have until March 30th, which is 90 days from the date that we issued the petitions, to collect at least 613 valid signatures to trigger a special election. So per our charter, once the petition has been deemed sufficient, meaning that at least 613 valid signatures have been collected, a special election must be held within 40 to 90 days. Our budget, we don't currently have the funds to hold a special election. And so to be proactive and ensure that we're ready to go when and if that happens, we're seeking the funding now. And then, of course, if there isn't a special election, then those funds would go back into the general fund. And the projected costs I've outlined in the memo, but they total $17,830.
Great, thank you. Is there any public comments on ordinance 25-01? Assembly deliberation? Sarah, thank you for being proactive on this. I understand you may not have the funding to carry on the wishes of the citizens. Thank you for making sure that we're able to do this as appropriate if necessary. And Sarah for the vote.
All right, on the motion to approve ordinance 2025-01 on first reading, Mr. Pike,
Yes.
Mr. Mosier,
Yes.
Mayor Eisenbeis,
Yes.
Mr. Celine,
Yes.
and Mr. Yestad.
Yes.
The motion passes 5-0.
Item G, please.
I move to approve resolution 2025-03 on first and final reading, submitting city and borough of Sitka fiscal year 2026 legislative priorities to the state of Alaska and 2025 legislature.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve resolution 25-03. Thank you, Melissa, for the introduction.
Yeah, good evening, Mayor and Assembly members. Melissa Wildman, Public and Government Relations Director. So I'm excited to present to you the legislative priorities and the unfunded mandates for the upcoming legislative season. By approving this resolution, the Assembly empowers the city and its staff with significant leverage when advocating for funding and support from the state and federal officials. Determining the legislative priorities is a collaborative process, and it spans throughout many departments. So again, this year we broke up the priorities into categories. So that includes Sitka's working waterfront, utility infrastructure, economic resilience, public safety, and transportation. We removed the Seaplane Base and the Green Lake Hydro rehabilitation projects. And then like a quick rundown so that the public understands, we're continuing advocating for the marine haul out. We have the Eliason Harbor on there, but we've changed it to be a smaller scale project. So it's the Eliason Harbor electrical and float repairs. We've got Thimbleberry bypass. We've got support for housing, childcare, nonprofits, and barriers to grants, and funding for an updated feasibility study for the PD and jail. So we've changed that from a full-blown $20 million project to sort of going back a little bit, taking a step back and looking at what that really looks like, because it's been quite some time since that last study has been done. And then we're advocating for Alaska DOT to take action for safety improvements on their roads. In particular, Harbor Drive, we all know these are issues, and also possibly near the Rapture Center. And then we're also looking at always trying to improve Halibut Point Road with pedestrian walkways and bicycles. So, also on there is the general support for a reliable Alaska Marine Highway System. The unfunded mandate is also included, which enables us to unite with other Alaska communities to present a strong collective voice to legislators. So this highlights, these unfunded mandates were promised by the state, but now impose burdens to our citizens. So we're always advocating for that. And then discussions are going to be happening soon in Juneau, and education will once again be taking center stage. And so we'll actively engage in those conversations. And we'll also be advocating for the community assistance program. And we'll be addressing the financial strain on our citizens due to the mandated upgrades to our wastewater system. And the state needs to inflation-proof the municipal harbor facility grant program. And then the next steps will include, sending these out to our representatives, senators, the governor, and our partners. And then next month, we'll take them to meet with legislators in Juneau. And these are always on the forefront of our lobbyists' minds. And when we're in DC, then we'll not only meet with our senators and representative and the governor's office, but we'll also ask for meetings for federal departments to discuss these too.
Great, thank you. Is there any public comment on resolution 25-03? Back to the assembly for deliberation. One thing I did want to bring up, I know that we had an email from JJ with some potential language changes that she wanted to see, 2 potential courses of action here. If the assembly is okay with the language as written, we can pass it. There would also be an opportunity to table this until the next meeting. It looks like we do have enough time, if we table it, that we could still take this forward to our Juneau meetings. So a couple different courses of action there. I just wanted to throw that out as JJ was not able to attend tonight.
I'm okay with it as is, but in respect for her desire to explain that a little bit, I would be okay with postponing it to the next meeting.
Yeah, I pretty much feel the same way Kevin does, so I can go that route, I guess, if that's the will.
I know that's like, I'm also okay with the language, but I'm interested in why she wanted to change some of the language as well. And in the past, I guess I'm kind of right in the middle too. Like I'm fine passing it as is. And I hate to pass it now and then modify it at the next meeting if we had to, because this would go to print. Tim?
I don't think we'll go wrong by having another conversation about this. That was a good presentation and it starts the process of people thinking about it. So let's give JJ a chance to explain why she felt strongly enough to put some effort into this. I think everybody's voice on this is very important.
And you're not wrong there. A resolution is 1 reading while ordinances are 2. This would give a second opportunity for the public to take a look at it and see if there's any thoughts that they have on it. So with that, then I would make the motion to table resolution 2503 until the next regularly scheduled assembly meeting.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to table resolution 2503 till the next regularly scheduled assembly meeting. Is there any public comment? Back to the assembly for deliberation. Sarah?
All right, on the motion to postpone resolution 2025-03 to the January 28th meeting, Mr. Celine,
Yes.
Mayor Eisenbais,
Yes.
Mr. Pike,
Yes.
Mr. Yestad,
Yes.
and Mr. Mosier.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you on that. Item H, please.
I move to approve a purchase agreement for raw water in bulk for export between the city and borough of Sitka and Global Hydration LLC as recommended by Gary Paxton Industrial Park Board and authorize the municipal administrator to execute the document.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve a purchase agreement for raw water. Gary, I understand you have an introduction for this one. Thank you.
Yes, so Gary White with Gary Paxton Industrial Park. So this is the GPIP board met in July and approved or recommended approval of this water purchase contract. And this water purchase contract is very similar to the water purchase contract that the city and borough is currently engaged with a group called Arctic Blue Waters Alaska. Both contracts give the purchaser the ability to acquire about 2 billion gallons of water, and then with the ability to acquire more once they have a certified purchaser and they're willing to pay additional fees. Which kind of puts us in a quandary right now. The reason that these contracts are designed the way they are, it's to allow the city and borough to enter into multiple water purchase agreements with multiple groups to try to help, give us a better chance of exporting water. So April 13th of 21, the city and borough entered into a contract with Arctic Blue Waters, and part of that contract has a clause in there that is the first right of refusal to purchase an additional 6.8 billion gallons. Arctic Blue Waters showed up to the GPIP meeting in December. They were presenting a conceptual loading plan of how they plan on loading water. And at that meeting, they suggested that they were going to exercise their right. Yesterday, they sent the city and borough a letter stating that they would like to exercise that right. By sending that letter, it starts a clock where they now have 45 days to provide the contract and to pay the additional funding that's needed, which is $100,000 up front. And then they have to pay an additional $50,000, one for every year of the 5-year contract prorated. So right now they would owe us another $200,000 with next 2 months or 3 months in April, it would start the 5th year and they would owe us another 50 grand. So when Rachel and I designed this contract for Global, we put in section 1.1 that says, hey, the city and borough is currently under another contract. And if the group does exercise their first right of refusal, the city and borough could not enter into a contract with you because we would not have enough water allocation. City and borough has about 9.5 billion gallons of water that we can export annually. So if Arctic does cheer up on their water, they'll have 8.8 billion gallons. We've got a small water purchase contract for a low volume group and about 100 million. And then we like to keep about 700 million gallons of water available annually, just in case one of our other low volume customers starts taking water, and so we can help increase that. So there's a couple ways you guys can move forward. You can approve this contract tonight, and the city and borough will not execute it until 44 days from now to see what happens with Arctic Blue, if they come up with the cash or not, or you could wait. So it's up to you guys. These guys, Global, have been waiting a while to see if they want to, if they have the ability to move forward and start marketing our water. And I'll be available for any questions. It's kind of complicated, but it gives us the best ability to market water with multiple groups, and then to really start working with someone if they do land those large contracts to move forward.
Thank you for the introduction, Gary. If we have any questions, we'll call you back up.
Sounds good.
Is there any public comment on the purchase agreement for raw water? Seeing none, back to the assembly. Tim, Kevin?
Oh, it's Tim can go. Okay. Thank you. Above all, my concern when entering into all these is that we have, first right, and I see from a memo and then on the actual agreement, section 4.1A that protects Sika's ability. I just want to make sure, I'll just read it. Notwithstanding any of the provisions of this agreement, Sika shall retain first right and priority to water required for its municipal drinking water supply system and its municipal hydroelectric system, and it may suspend or limit raw water deliveries in bulk to GH to meet the requirements of its municipal drinking water and hydroelectric systems. Whether there is a sufficient volume of raw water available for these purposes should be at the sole discretion of the administrator. So this is even if like there's a drought or something like that. And so Rachel, can you help us out here?
Yeah, so protecting the city's use of the city water comes first.
Okay, no matter what, whether
Right.
it's, okay. I got that from all this, but I just wanted to kind of confirm, and for the public to hear that too. That's what I have for now.
Tim?
Is it likely that global is gonna go away if we wait?
I would guess not. I mean, we're one of the few places in the United States that has a large allocation of water that has permits to be able to export it in bulk. So I do not believe so. The only thing we would do is we'd be limiting their ability to start marketing right off the bat. But knowing that there's a first right of refusal from Arctic, there's no way we're going to sign that contract. Well, it's up to these two, but I would suggest there's no way we're going to sign that contract for at least another 44 days.
Thank you. I mean, I don't see any benefit. I mean, it seems like we're postponing everything right now, but I just don't see any benefit in moving forward with this until we know whether or not it's even a viable option. So, you know, I don't want to put everybody's time into this beyond what's already been done. Thank you for collecting these folks, but you know, if they, you know, exercise their right of first refusal and pay the money, then this contract doesn't matter anyway. So I would prefer to wait and see 45 days. I mean, marketing for 45 days, I don't think it's going to break anything. So.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly where I'm at too. We do have a contract with Arctic Blue Waters, and I'm going to put my faith in them right now that they are going to deliver on their first right. Because even if we did sign a new agreement with Global Hydration, you know, I wouldn't take any massive steps until that 44 days had passed anyway as a company. So I think that's, I think it's a good thing to come back and review should Arctic Blue not exercise their right, and then talk about this holistically as opposed to kind of piecemealing it out. So I'm also in favor of postponing until a 44-day period has passed. Chris?
Yeah, same sentiments. You know, I'm fine with waiting. I do want to say that with my time being with the GPIP board, Arctic is the closest company we've had so far to actually doing bulk water. You know, last meeting they presented a plan for a mooring system and then bulk water delivery. And it sounds like they're moving forward with getting an engineer on board now with that. So I'm definitely excited to see the progress. You know, this is something that has always come up at the GPIP level, and this feels like with Arctic, it's kind of the closest it's ever been. So I kind of want to put my faith in them right now and see what they can do with it and give them the chance at least. And then if they're not able to, then yeah, I have no problem looking more seriously at global.
And just say, I agree with you guys.
I'm just looking out to what meeting that would put us at. So be the February, no, the the 25th, 44 days after that meeting? Or is it the March 11th meeting?
Forty-four days from today is February 27th.
So it'd have to be on the March 11th meeting? Okay. So the motion, if the assembly is desirous, that would be to postpone until the March 11th meeting.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to postpone the purchase agreement for raw water until the March 11th meeting. Is there any public comment on postponement? Assembly deliberation? Gary, would that give your group enough time to come back to us with a reasonable packet? Should the 45 days pass and you have everything in line already? Gary nodded in the affirmative there. Anything else from the assembly? Sarah?
All right, on the motion to postpone the purchase agreement for raw water between the city and Global Hydration to the March 11th meeting, Mr. Pike,
Yes.
Mr. Celine,
Yes.
Mr. Mosier,
Yes.
Mr. Yestad,
Yes.
and Mayor Eisenbeiß.
Yes.
The motion passes 5-0 on item H.
The next item tonight is a discussion direction decision on lease terms for the Sitka Community Garden at Jarvis Street. So what you have in front of you tonight, Assembly, is some lease terms that staff would like a little bit of guidance on. I have talked over these with legal and they all seem extremely reasonable. They all seem like they are stuff that staff can accomplish within these lease terms. And I know it is the Assembly's goal to get this garden going as a whole. So unless there are any changes that the Assembly would like within these 1 through 6 terms that are indicated, then we can just we can tell staff to go ahead and prepare this lease, which will then come back and then we can get the community gardens group going. Amy, I also see I should have called on you to do that introduction. I hope I covered everything you were about to cover and made it easy on you tonight.
No, that made things very easy. And it kind of sounds like everyone is well acquainted with the property and with the proposal. As the mayor mentioned, there are 6 items that I outlined in the memo there that are just very quickly kind of authorization for when site work can begin, proof of funding for the project, additional required features like lighting and permanent restrooms that the Assembly may wish to see as contingencies for the lease. And then payment and fees of, an annual lease payment of $1 a year and a request to waive property tax, which if the Assembly gives direction for us to do, we will assist the applicants with a community purpose exemption application in this upcoming round.
Yes, and that for the Assembly's benefit, that is the route that we had talked about as well, is that there is a community purpose exemption, and that's how the Sitka Community Gardens would go through this property tax process. So, like I said earlier, when we went through them all, they were all amenable and they were all something that staff could easily accomplish. So I want to get these guys to work and get some shovels turning. I was going to say in March when the ground thaws, but salmon berries are budding right now. So it must be right now. Anything else on this discussion?
No, I pretty much share the same feeling, anything to help them out to get this project going. Sounds good to me. So if this is it, great.
Okay.
Oh, go ahead.
Aren't we holding it up? But they got to come up with 194 grand right now for the whole project. Is that correct? For 3 years, going out 3 years, that they got to come up with the whole lump sum, like.
Not of my understanding. What are you looking at there?
Don't they have to prove that they have complete funding before it can go forward?
No, I think that's what they anticipate their costs being here. Yeah, because if they're not going to do toilet and utility planning until 27, we wouldn't need that right in front of them now. But this allows them to start that fundraising process as well. Rachel?
What this requires right now is the $5,000 performance bond to get going.
Cool, sounds good.
I would just say, I agree with the sentiment, want to do everything we can to get them over the finish line. Really grateful that they're working on this and so dedicated to that. Really appreciate it.
Same.
John, do you have a direction needed on this one?
We'll get the lease prepared.
Great, thank you. That'll bring us to item J. Yes, item J, please.
I move to approve amendment number 1 to the lease agreement between the city and borough of Sitka and Sitka Historical Society Incorporated and authorize the municipal administrator to execute the document.
Second.
So we moved to second to approve this amendment. Again, this is another easy one that we should have taken care of a while ago. Rachel, I just did your whole presentation as well.
No problem. So this is a housekeeping measure. The assembly passed the provisions in here almost 2 years ago. We're just adding the lease extension and the utility exemption into the lease itself, so it doesn't get lost in the shuffle and all that information is in the actual lease and not having to go look for the ordinances to figure that out.
Thank you. Is there any public comment on approving the amendment number 1 to the lease agreement? Back to the assembly for deliberation. Again, we approved these multiple years ago. This is just putting it in a more proper form. Sarah?
All right, on the motion to approve the amendment number 1 to the lease agreement between the city and the Sitka Historical Society, Mr. Yestad,
Yes.
Mayor Eisenbeiss,
Yes.
Mr. Mosher,
Yes.
Mr. Pike,
Yes.
and Mr. Celine.
Yes.
The motion passes 5-0 on item J.
Thank you. That would bring us to persons to be heard. This is public participation for any item on or off tonight's agenda, not to exceed 3 minutes for any individual.
For the record, my name is Joel Hanson. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the Assembly. Thank you very much. It's been a long road and we appreciate it. Thanks.
Good afternoon, Austin Cranford. At the second assembly meeting of December, I requested the assembly to release information regarding the animal shelter and what specifically happened to the animals that were there. I've done research, which is why I requested the information be released. We know that animals were put down on the 9th month of 2025. Based on what I could find from publicly available surveillance data. Some people's CCTV cameras are open to the public, so I advise both the city and private citizens make sure their CCTV cameras are secured. Sending photos that I have in my possession taken from inside of the facility during the cleanup efforts to some of my military buddies that are in investigations. The blood splatter is consistent with gunshots, basically. So we know that the animals were put down by gunshot just based on the blood splatter itself. We know that the only people that had access to that facility are the chief and the lieutenant. And we know that at the time these animals were put down, that the chief was not in town. That only leaves one other person, in this case, Lieutenant Ashay, who could have had access to the building when these animals were put down. I know the city has not responded to why both the chief and the lieutenant's positions are currently open for hire, but I can make some hypothetical guesses. So I am once again requesting that the city release the information as to why, who, and how the animals were put down. And all the information that I have and collected was transferred to the state, who is currently looking at the city's permitting process. And that's all I have today. Thank you.
Anyone else for persons to be heard? Any item on or off tonight's agenda? Seeing none, we'll go into reports. I have no reports this time, except that it's going to be a busy end of January and February for myself and the administrator. Lots of travel, lots of legislative trips, legislative conferences. John?
Thank you, Mayor. I'll just add on to that, the next assembly meeting, I'll be absent for the Pacific Northwest Symposium. I'll be traveling there, and then some travel in February for both Southeast Conference and the AML Winter Conference. And we continue along with our budget process. I believe our next meeting is this Thursday, the 16th with the school district. Thanks.
Rachel?
No substantive reports from me. I will be traveling in the middle of February on a vacation that pre-existed my hiring. So I'll be calling in for the February 11th meeting.
Liaison representatives. Sarah?
No report.
Any other reports this evening?
Mr. Mayor.
Please, Kevin.
Thank you. I mentioned a couple meetings ago that I got a tour about a month or so ago of the U.S. Park Service by the administration. Just happened from meeting one of them in Seamart, sorry, and you just get chatting and they just showed me around. But one thing I wanted to share from that is they said that, and they showed me a little bit, they had this past summer and they're going to have this summer specially trained dogs. It's like from the government that can help smell for long deceased remains. And so they're excited about the possibility of looking around and getting more information and details on our history here. And I think that's a very good thing. And they also encourage people, if they're interested to find more, go over there and they will show you guys around too, or members of the public.
Great, thank you. That'll bring us to our executive session tonight.
I move to go into executive session to receive and discuss attorney-client communications from the municipal attorney and outside legal counsel Jermaine Dunnigan and Owens regarding the legal and financial matters affecting the municipality due to the Cranford v. CBS litigation.
Second.
So moved and seconded to enter executive session. Is there any public comment regarding entering executive session? Sarah, the vote, please.
All right, on the motion to go into executive session, Mr. Celine?
Yes.
Sorry. Mr. Pike?
Yes.
Mr. Yestad?
Yes.
Mr. Mosier?
Yes.
And Mayor Eisenbais?
Yes.
The motion passes 5-0, and we'll be meeting in room 4.
Thank you. Room 4. Assembly, please take a break on your way as it is the top of the hour. Motion to reconvene.
So moved.
All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Thank you. We are reconvened as the assembly in regular session. We met with outside counsel to go over some of the legal and financial matters of the Cranford versus CBS case. Moves us to adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you, everybody. We are adjourned.